very good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to everyone. Myself, Roktim Dasgupta, on behalf of ISWMAW and other partner organizations, welcome all to this plenary session 3, that is Latin America and African countries. It's an honor having amongst us here Professor S.V. Satyanarayana, Jawaharlal Nehru Technological University, Anandpur, Andhra Pradesh, India, and co-chair Professor Aniruddha Mukhopadhyay, University of Calcutta, India. All participants in the plenary session are to remain in the default mute mode. Speakers may be unmuted only when requested. On request, the camera may be put on, else it will be off. All the presentations will be rated for IconSWM-CE Excellence Award 2021. I request respective responsible persons to kindly put the rating for each of the presentations on the rating sheet, which is already provided to you. I request to adhere to the duration of the presentation time of 15 minutes to avoid delay. The Q&A session will be at the end of all presentations. Questions and queries may be asked only in the chat box to the specific speakers. The chairs kindly write the chair summary of the session present at the end of the session and send it to our email. I request all the presenters to kindly confirm their attendance in the chat box. Please make a note, I repeat, all the presenters kindly confirm your attendance in the chat box. I request the co-chair, Professor Aniruddha Mukhopadhyay, to kindly start the session.
I welcome all the speakers for today's session. This is a very important session. Very respected personalities have been invited for this particular plenary session. And this is a very important session, as I mentioned. There are 7 papers, very important papers. And this plenary session is US, Latin American, and African countries. So I know that we will all enjoy the presentations. So it's because we have already, we are already late by 5 to 10 minutes. We can start the session. And I would like to request all our volunteers or other professionals to help me or call the speakers one by one so that they can start their presentations. On behalf of me and on behalf of the organizers, once again, I welcome all the speakers. Professor Roktim.
I request Gabriela MUNOZ-MELENDEZ from Mexico to please make the presentation. Please unmute and open the PPT and share the screen. Please start and finish in 15 minutes.
And the title of the presentation is Status of the Adoption and Practices of Circular Economy in Mexico.
I think he's not present now, sir.
Okay. In that case, we can go to the second speaker.
Now I request Ronald L. Marsky from USA to please make the presentation. Ronald L. Marsky from USA.
The title of the presentation
is
yes, the title of the presentation is Addressing the Nuisance Aspects of Municipal Solid Waste Management.
Could we move to the next presentation, sir?
Yes, yes. You can move to the
So
number
I
3.
request Tapas K.DAS to please make the presentation. Tapas K.DAS to please make the presentation.
The title is Life Cycle Assessment as Applied to Water Reclamation and Reuse, Cradle to Cradle.
Tapas sir is present here.
Yes.
Tapas sir present here. And please unmute and open the PPT and share the screen, sir.
Can you see my slides? Hello?
Till now, it is not visible, sir.
No.
Where is the share button? I don't see the share button. Okay.
Sir, you can find link to the video. Stop. Present video button.
Okay. Can you see the slides now?
No, sir. We have. Sir, you can find it in the bottom.
Yes, I clicked on the share.
Okay, sir.
And then uploading my slides here.
Yes, sir. Now it's visible.
Now you can see. Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
All right.
Yes.
It is
Sir, please
my
start.
pleasure. Hello.
Mhm.
Hello.
Yes, sir. Please start.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. It is about 4, almost 5 a.m. in the Pacific. I'm in the US. It is my pleasure and honor to join you at the IconSWM and IPLA Global Forum 2021. I personally thank and congratulate Professor Shadan Ghosh for his leadership and contribution in the areas of waste management and circular economy. Also, I want to thank you all at this session as a presenter and the co-chair, Professor Anuruddha Mukhopadhyay. As we mentioned, the title of my speech is Life Cycle Assessment as Applied to Water Reclamation and Reuse, Cradle to Cradle. I have over 70 slides. I reduced from 90 to 70. I'm not sure whether I will have time to go through in details through all those 70 slides, but I'll try my best. Let's move on to the next slide. The objectives of this presentation as outlines, I'm going to present the concept, model, and tools to estimate the LCA implications of engineered system, process, or product choices designed for environmental sustainability, particularly related to zero waste discharge, water reclamation, and reuse within an industrial urban watersheds. Incorporating advanced wastewater treatment technologies at a reasonable cost with less ecological and environmental damage and public health, but to what degree and what trades off. To answer these questions, life cycle assessment of chlorine versus ultraviolet disinfection for water reclaim and reuse, mini case study will be presented. Illustrate the application of streamlined life cycle assessment to sustainable engineered process and product. Here is the slides showing in India. I obtained on the website the 3 distinct zones of the watershed that showing the rivers, the land, and the ocean, and the rainfall regions. Similarly, for US, of course, much larger country, as you see, it's a huge number of watershed covering the whole areas, surrounded by two oceans on the sides and many rivers and creeks and lakes around it. So here is a scenario showing the industrial and municipal wastewater infrastructure management, how industry and the water resources are the sharing waters, municipalities and industries sharing water and putting back into water at the receiving end, primarily groundwater and surface water. Okay. So this is kind of defining the industrial and urban and rural watershed. This means that designing and operating industrial systems such that the output of activities within an industrial and urban rural watershed system such that the activity serves as, say, primarily nutrients, nitrogen, phosphorus, and so on, reuse, recycling within the ecological process and our prosperity. An area or region drained by a river systems, and other water bodies, an area or ridge of land that separate waters flowing different rivers, basins, and seas. This slide really doesn't show very well. Typically, what you see, the constituents found in the wastewater, conventional as well as non-conventional, nutrients, BOD, COD, and nitrates, and so on, and then non-conventional refractory organics, surfactants, metals, and so on. So that I'll continue more about this later on. Here is the reclaimed water quality suggested by the US federal government. Urban refusal, agriculture, refuse food crops, agriculture reuse, non-food crops, landscape implementation, recreational impoundments, and the construction user, industrial user, groundwater recharge, indirect potable reuse. As you see, water is connected pretty much everywhere. And here are some of the guidelines for LCA. I'm now moving into LCA, the grand objectives of the life cycle assessment. I'll take a little bit time to actually go through each point because it is very important. Apply LCA information at every stages, at every early stages of a product or a process design. And then the systems-wide examination, multimedia approach, air, water, and solid waste, not just singly looking into water, air, or hazardous waste. Identify the trades-off among alternatives. Like here, for example, the disinfection of wastewater using chemicals like chlorine versus the radiation ultraviolet. Identify opportunities to improve the systems, support environmental decision-making, and sustainable development, LCA-based innovation, product, and process development. All right, thank you very much for your attention. Next slide is actually showing the LCA stops. I mean, starting from raw material extraction, material processing, production, use and maintenance, and disposal, reuse, recycling. Okay, 3 Rs. It depicts the same thing. It's a definition of USA. It's an old definition, but still it's good. A concept and methodology to evaluate the environmental effects of a product, process, or activity holistically by analyzing the whole LCA of a particular product, process, or activities. Okay. LCA studies analyze the environmental aspects and potential impact throughout a product's life cycle, like cradle to grave, from raw materials acquisition through production and disposal. And this picture depicts the same thing from mining to manufacturing, use, operation, disposal, and then reuse, recycling, going back into manufacturing. That makes a closed loop. And the next figure is actually showing the three important, the goal. So the first one, as you see, what's the goal and scope of doing an LCA? Then the inventory analysis, and then impact assessment. The impact assessment is very, very important because you have to find all impacts in all media independently. And so those data are really important in order to make a real LC assessment. If we don't have the real good quality data, it is the time and the resources and the will be kind of wasted, I should say. And then overall interpretation of the whole thing. So here is a little bit details about the scope and the goal and the inventory analysis and the impact assessments and interpretations. Okay, not going through the details, but basically impact assessment is to look at the human and ecological effect of energy, water, material uses, and the environmental releases identified in the inventory analysis. And the interpretation is the evaluate of the results of the inventory analysis, impact assessment to select the preferred product, I should say process and product or services with a clear understanding of the uncertainty and the assumptions used to generate these results. Okay. And again, it's showing the steps. As you see, raw materials and energy is introduced into the systems and is going through that, and then all the waste going into the different medias, air, water, solid waste, pro product, other releases, and so on. So this is the whole boundary of the LCA, okay? And the data availability, there are many sources, a North America database, National Research Energy Lab, EPA, all those different websites are available, not only in the US, in the Europe, as well as in Asia. And here is the slides of the US EPA sites, LCA Access Home. You could get a lot of resource and data here. So the evaluating life cycle assessment performance of two disinfection technologies, the objectives is, I have to go little details to clarify why you are doing this as an illustration with increasing emphasis on promoting and sustainable ecological future and concern over introducing toxic chemicals in water, disinfection process design, leaning towards technologies that destroy pathogens, virus and bacteria as well, balancing the effects of disinfected wastewater, aquatic biodata on a drinking water supply. Since ultraviolet UV radiation is not a chemical addition, it does not have a product toxic byproduct in the wastewater. Objective is to present streamlined environmental LCA between the two disinfection processes. An approach applies environmental LCA to this disinfection process, incorporating economic criteria and not all aspects of the environment, chemical use, electricity, and the releases of chemicals to water, air, and land. So that pretty much in nutshell about evaluating an LCA of two competitive or more than two competitive processes. Well, when you add chlorine, basically in water, you have HOCl, OCl minus. These are hypochloric acid. This is free chlorine. And then you'll have ammonia, particularly if the municipal solid waste, you'll have a lot of ammonia, and chlorine will actually react with those, making monoditrichloroamine, which is also a total residual chlorine, because they also have some power, not very strong, to actually disengage or kill bacteria or viruses. So here a little more in details, as I mentioned earlier, this hypochloric acid, they are the really strong disinfectant. When bacteria cell getting close to those acid, it destroys basically. And then monodi and trichloroamine also act as a weak disinfectant. So that's an addition to this hypochloric acid disinfection capabilities. So the next slide is actually the effect of residual chlorine on aquatic life. Since we are adding chlorine, which is chemical, and then there are a lot of organic materials that in the wastewater. So those organochemicals, numerous of them, some of them could be human health related issue, or fish and other biotas that in the wastewater, because those are chemicals. Some can be carcinogenic also, okay? So the toxicity evaluation is also very important. Here, the next slide, you see rainbow trout. Here in the Pacific Northwest, fish is very important. So to protect fish, like rainbow trout, you don't want to add chlorine, okay?
Sir, sorry to interrupt.
Yes, I know that time-wise, so I have to speed up my presentation because only 20 minutes not enough for 80 slides. But I'll go pretty quickly. See, coho salmon, about this 96-hour LC50 lethal concentration, the chlorine is about 0.032 parts per million. Similarly, Pacific herring, English sole, these numbers. So as you see, these fish and prawns are very sensitive to chlorine, free chlorine. And similarly, next slides, the coho salmon, pink salmon, CC70, TL50 is about 100% kill at this concentration, okay? These are the research work done here in the state of Washington some years ago. I've been using those data. So that goes on the list, all the different fish and fatted minnow, those you find in freshwater. So let's take a look at the ultraviolet systems. Since it's not a chlorine addition, here is the ultraviolet tube. Basically, it radiates, gives an energy that radiates to the water. Anything that associate within that radiation, it will be disinfected. It will kill the bacteria and so on. So you have a typical 8 tubes in a rim there that goes inside the water. And the next slide actually tells you some of the conditions, best conditions for operating ultraviolet disinfection. Major parameters are you have to maintain the radiation in terms of milliwatt per centimeter square between 20 to 30. That's the UV dose. Pre-treatment, you have 35 to 65. Temperature total suspended solid should be between 5 and 10. Particle size distribution between 10 to 40 micrometer. Flow has to be ideal plug flow. There is no fluctuation in the flow. And the residence times about 2 seconds or more in order to have 100% disinfection. Yes. Hello, any questions so far? All right, let's move on to the next slide. As you see here, all the UV batteries that are lined up in a series. Water is flowing underneath. This is where the power supplies are. Okay, and these are the treatment plant not far from where I live. It's called Lacey Olympia Tumwater, Thurston County Lot Wastewater Treatment Plant, and they used to have chlorine disinfection, but they were the first one on the West Coast to change from chlorine to ultraviolet disinfection. Okay, I visited the plant few times while I was actually working on this LCA paper. If you look at the dose required for chlorine and ultraviolet for different bacteria, E. coli, and are listed here. So you see those blacks are chlorine, and then the whole line is ultraviolet. So in terms of dosage, that's not huge difference between the radiation as well as the chemical disinfection. What about the cost? If you look at two different chemical systems along with the ultraviolet, you see the operating cost, capital cost, operating maintenance, the basically total cost are not a huge difference. One other thing I like to mention, the chlorine, in case of accidental escape in the atmosphere, the neighboring area will be affected because chlorine can be deadly poisonous. So that's another drawback. Ultraviolet, only thing to protect your eyes, you have to wear a glass. Other than that, there is not much human problem in terms of health related issues. Because that's cost. So in terms of cost, as you see that both system, radiation and chemicals, not huge difference in terms of operating capital cost and so on. But the benefit to protect human health and environmental, fish and other things, definitely ultraviolet has a very positive idea. So here I kind of summarized the pros and cons between those two systems. I kind of mentioned earlier in details, but this where I actually pointed out separately about the toxics, about other things that you have to chlorine. Sometime you have to dechlorinate. If you have excess chlorine in water, then you have to neutralize that with sulfur dioxide. So these are the summary between those two. And the industrial wastewater treatment, I'm moving into pre-treatment because sometime industrial wastewater will have high temperature, could be high pH or low pH. So you have to neutralize those before you can actually add the water into the municipal combined wastewater treatment. Okay, in order to meet the criteria for this NPDES permit, which is National Pollutant Discharge Elimination Systems. Okay. All right, here you can see sometime untreated treated industrial wastewater, like here it dumped into the river water. And if you look at typical conventional pollutants like BOD5, COD, total suspended solids for different industries, here listed the average concentrations. And the same list for other industries, say metal plating, nylon, polymer, synthetic textile, meat processing, and so on, plywood. So typically, if you look at wastewater treatment plant, you have the influent coming in. This is from a pulp mill. Used to be a pulp mill, Longview Fiber. It's about 80 miles from here, down south near Oregon. One of the largest plants. So you see there are 60 million gallons per day. They have the pure oxygen UNOx secondary treatment. And then this is the clarifier, and then the treated wastewater goes into the river, big river, Columbia River. I've been to the plant a number of times. These are the diffuser at the bottom of the aeration basin. This is very important in order to maintain oxygen supply. That's part of the treatment system. And these are different types of aeration. And this is the sedimentation for after secondary treatment is done. Then you want to settle all the solids, and this the clarifier, all the clean water that is going into for disposal or reuse recycling. Going back to this chlorine contact chamber, you introduce chlorine at one end and it goes to protrude like this. You need about 30 minutes residential time in order to ensure that disinfection is complete, okay? That's the EPA regulation. For advanced treatment, this is showing a reverse osmosis water treatment plant, one of the largest in the world in Los Angeles. I visited the plant some years ago. For water reclamation, reuse, groundwater recharge. They don't waste any water, particularly California, and this is one of the expensive treatment to remove all the way to the metals. And I'll come back to water recharge, reuse, recycling later on. And these are typical NPDES permit, as you see the limits for BOD5, TSS, flow, pH, rainbow trout, biomass, so that has to fulfill 80% or more survival. Okay. Now, when you actually treat one of the high level of treated wastewater, you don't want to waste your water, right? Because you paid the price, you want to utilize that water. If you put into in a nearby receiving water, for example, for Columbia River, then you look into what will be the impact of the overall water quality at the downstream of your discharge. So there is a total maximum daily load. For example, in Ganges, in the within a mile of water bodies, what you are actually putting the upstreams and the water quality downstream. That's the total maximum daily load. How much waste of BOD, COD, and others that you can actually put to maintain the water quality. That makes sense. So that's the thing.
Dr. Das,
Yes.
Professor Das.
Yes.
Yeah, I was not interested to intervene, but my secretariat is telling me that the presentation time is 10 minutes and we have a number of speakers.
Okay.
So though you are making a very good keynote speech, this is very interesting and this is educative. But what we can do is we can share, if you want, we can share this PDF of your presentation so that they can study and learn. And if you can finish in a minute so that all other presenters will get a chance to present their work.
Okay. All right. That's fine. I
please,
could have cut it short, but I thought I want to give a little more information. You see,
I know that it is a vast subject, no? That's right.
Yeah, it is a vast subject. I had another 20 slides I could have added, but anyway, you see
you
the
can finish in 1 minute.
Okay.
So that others can get a chance to make a good presentation.
Yeah, see the cooling water and then utilization of use. Even here is the nuclear power plant. A huge amount of water being used in cooling tower. So reclaimed water has, these are the membrane bioreactor, microfiltration, nanofiltration, reverse osmosis I mentioned, desalination, brine concentrated, demineralization, ultra pure water. These are the filtration spectrum. Let's go to my conclusion. And later on, you could see the slides, any question you have. This is your micro filtration systems within membrane. These are typical membrane rack. Anyway, so what is reclaimed water? Again, I don't have time to go through, but you see those all areas that you can use. The benefits of course, the cash. You paid upfront, now you get to use it in many areas, agriculture to and so on. Huge amount of nitrogen, so that is suitable. Some of this information, I got it from 2005 book, Towards Zero Discharge. And here is the system, a zero discharge system. I don't have time to go through. take river water, putting the treated water back into river with that high quality water. Anyway, so these are a disinfection system I mentioned earlier, and all those things are kind of repeated. Let's go back to my last slide, and then these are all beneficial uses from agriculture to suppress dust in industrial site, construction sites. These are all other usage. Could have wetlands, have direct groundwater recharge is the next one. And this is my 2020 book, Industrial Wastewater Management, that also has a lot of case studies and information related to water reclamation reuse. And this is the conclusion. As I mentioned earlier, you paid upfront the advanced treatment and utilize all the water in different areas. That is probably the key messages. And I acknowledge all these areas that I have learned, the Department of Ecology, US EPA, Skillings, consulting firms, Longview Farms, graduate students, they also, where I teach, they also help me in this presentation. Thank you very much for your attention. I'm sorry that I took the time that it was allocated for me. Thank you for your attention and good luck. And thank you very much, Professor Ghosh, for your invitation. Any questions? If
Good
not,
evening, sir.
yes.
Good evening, sir. It is Professor Satyanarayana from JNTU, Anantapur, Andhra Pradesh.
Yes, yes, sir.
It is really good presentation.
Thank you.
And one thing is, when you use the aerobic treatment or anaerobic treatment, we are losing the important organic compounds. Today, we are using a technology, a membrane technology called peroperation. And by using this membrane technology peroperation, we can recover that organic compounds without destroying the organic compounds.
Okay.
This is the one more, like as you already mentioned about membrane bioreactors, reverse osmosis and other things. The second problem, what I can see, recently I visited 2-3 plants. There we have a problem of odor when you are using this aerobic treatment. So when you use the open ponds for the aerobic treatment, particularly chemical effluents, and that odor is going to become one of the issue. So how to overcome this problem? With your experience, maybe you can share that.
Well,
In fact, Satyanarayan ji, Professor Satyanarayan, because we have started it at 18:15 and we have 8-9 speakers and we have to close the session by 8:15 because we are in the university. So it's better to take the question answer session at the end of the session. So first, you and Professor Aniruddha as chairs, please go ahead with the presentation for 10 minutes by each of them. And then if you get time at the end, then you can go for the question answer session.
Okay, sir. Okay, sir.
Okay, all right. I think I will answer during questions answer session towards the end.
That's
very much.
That's
an interesting question. There are case studies recovering resources from
chairs, Professor Satyanarayan and Aniruddha. Please go
thank
ahead.
you.
Yeah, sir. So maybe we can invite the next presentation, sir. Maybe Dinesh can look into that. Dinesh, can you invite the next person? Sir, you remove the PowerPoint presentation from the main this one, sir, so that other people can present.
Yeah.
Tapas Das, Professor Tapas Das.
Go ahead.
Thank you for your presentation, sir.
Yes.
Yes, sir. Can you remove your presentation?
Ask the second.
Okay,
Professor,
sir.
Professor Tapatas, can you remove your presentation, sir?
Yes, I did.
Thank you, sir.
Hmm?
Now
Yes,
I
yes.
request K coach KJ Muni to please make the presentation. Please unmute and open the PPT and share the screen. Please start and finish in 15 minutes.
You know, 50. Plenary. Okay. But you know, this is plenary.
Yeah.
How many are there?
7.
The 7 presentations, sir.
Yeah.
The title of the presentation is Agriculture and Agri-Industry Wastes and Vegetable Wastes Management in Nairobi, Kenya. Professor Muni.
Good evening, good afternoon, and good morning, wherever you are in the time zones of the world. The title of my presentation is Agricultural and Agri-Industry Waste, Vegetables and Waste Management in the Nairobi County, which is our capital. And this is the title of our paper. And I'm presenting on behalf of my colleague, Mr. Kaburu J. Munene, and myself. And slide number 1, as you can see, is the title and the names of the authors and the addresses. So we have done it in an outline form.
Professor
And that
Michael,
outline form is introduction, objective, study area, agricultural and agri-industry waste and vegetable waste in the city of Nairobi, the sources of the waste, the impacts of the waste, best practices that can be able to manage the waste, and then conclusion. Now, as far as introduction is concerned, generally Kenya is its main sector that drives the economy is agriculture. And for about 24% of the gross domestic product are agricultural based. And Kenyan's agriculture is the largest scale contributor of exchanging things, coffee, tea, vegetables, and other horticultural crops. And the sector also provides employment opportunities to many citizens of the country and others outside the country or within the East African area. And an estimated percentages, 75% of the population is highly dependent, and they depend on agriculture directly or indirectly in very many settings. And the increase of Kenya's population that is very significant is causing this high demand for agricultural produce, hence causing significant increase in production that in many cases lead to pollution and other things through the wastes. And as we continue with the introduction, additionally, there are very many small-scale urban peri-agricultural activities and practices within the city, and that also increases the supplies of agricultural produce. And then in the areas of the slums and in the other settings, and they create and produce many pollution that comes out of food because of the number of people, the activities, and management this waste is a challenge. And what I would like to say is that the urban and peri-urban agricultural activities and practices, transportation, sales, processing of agricultural produce from the hinterlands to the rural areas, contribute significantly to agricultural waste. That is based, and that is the key of this paper. And what I would like to cover in this slide, as far as the introduction is concerned, is that materials that make agricultural waste I want to highlight a few of them here and then move on with this paper of ours. One is animal waste, such as manure, carcasses, hides and skins, food waste, such as fruit and vegetables, crop biomass, such as stalks, prunings, weeds, you name them, toxics and inorganic waste include residues of very many things, including the fertilizer, the herbicides, insecticides, and pesticides. And the objective of this study, ladies and gentlemen, is one, to determine the sources of agricultural and agri-industrial waste and vegetable waste particularly, and to assess the impacts of those waste and agriculture, waste industry, and you name them, vegetables from the hotels, you name them, and then to analyze the best practices that can assist. We can assist us in Kenya, in the Nairobi city, for example, to do the best practices that are good and that can help manage waste and reduce the environmental hazard that they create. And this is some of the objectives of these papers of ours. Now, the study area is, of course, within the Nairobi County, the Nairobi city, which is our capital. And the Nairobi city is population is increasing, and we are using the data from the Ministry of Planning and National Development, particularly from the 2009, and it's showing the population and of the city of Nairobi that has increased from about 3 million and going up. And this increase in the Nairobi's population has always led and is leading in the supply of agricultural produce, that is the topic of our paper, and in the hinterland, in the rural areas, and aggravates the increase of agricultural waste that are really becoming dangerous within the city and in the peripheries of the city. Now, let's address issues again here as we continue. There are Nairobi, for example, produces solid waste between 2,000 and 3,000 liters per day, and about 6% of this waste is actually food and agricultural waste from there. And despite the city producing agricultural waste, about 45% of this waste is recovered, transported, and be recycled and treated in various places. And in some of the places that include the treatment of this waste and where they are transported is named the Dandora, one of the largest landfill within the city of Nairobi. And the garbage is always taken there. And managing this waste there is a challenge, is a mind-boggling thing, so that we need all the help we can. And always this comes as a result of the increased population and many people coming into the city. Now, the Nairobi's urban poor are scavenging over solid waste with the Dandora, recovering scrap metals, plastic bottles, and very many other things. And in doing this, they may also create hazards, and it creates things like sickness to those who are scavenging on this. And we want to manage them, be able to have human beings of this city and within Kenya live a life that is appropriate. Here I have shown you the waste from the production of kinds of waste within the agricultural sector. You can see that, and the way we are trying to remove them and take them away. These are waste from the composting, and you name them, those things that are really contributing to this factor. And we are doing our best through environmental management authority that we have and the city county environmental management practices that we have. And so this is what we are doing. I won't leave the livestock production and waste that it generates, and it causes a lot of problems. Inorganic waste like urine, for example, creates a lot of wastewater and shares a lot of issues. And if you walk around Nairobi, drive around our Nairobi city, various streams are clogged up with very many of these waste, and this is making problems for us. And this is why we have taken this study and then see how we can manage them and then be able to contribute to managing environment in a sustainable way. Now, there is aquaculture. And aquaculture is becoming also significant within the city of Nairobi. People are developing and building dams and keeping fish. And these fish or aquaculture practices now generate and produce other types of animal waste. And this is creating more and more challenges for the city. Now, if we go to markets within Nairobi, and if we visit these various markets that are selling fruits, vegetables, and other things that the demand are very high, so you will find all these type of waste being generated day in, day out, and accumulations. Their dustbins are full to the capacity, but the city county is doing its best in managing these wastes. And I think that this study will also generate our own recommendation and share with the city, and then be able to assist the city through the NEMA Environmental Management Authority. Food and meat processing, solid waste, very, very challenging issues, and creates very many problems for our citizen and us. So these things are here, these things are challenges, and these things need to be addressed. And the impacts of agricultural and agri-industry waste and vegetable waste in Nairobi are very many. Environmental destruction is very key. The public health issues, respiratory diseases, you name them, waterborne diseases, are all the impacts that come out of agricultural and agri-industrial and vegetable waste. Best practices that we want to do and assist our city, assist ourselves, is to do partnership of stakeholders to work together and see how we can manage the solid waste, particularly from the food and you name them, and then formulate policies that create or utilize the policies that are there to assist us in this. And nationally, there is nationally appropriate mitigation action called NAMA, and we want to create partnership with this type of organization and promote circular economy and reduce emissions of all types, and then we can contribute to a safer environment. Multilateral environmental agreement, we can use them. We have UNEP here in Kenya, and UNEP has a policy that says think, eat, save, reduce your footprint on this of unwanted fruit, for example, can be given to the charities, organization to assist. Cooling technologies are very important. We need to adopt them or adapt them. Use camels to feed on fruits and vegetables, and rearing black soldier flies, for example, or larvae, using organic waste to create animal feeds, and organic composting is some of the best practices that we foresee that can be done in the future. Now, ladies and gentlemen, we have I have a number of conclusions, and I'll mention a few of them. One of them is the city dwellers practicing urban agriculture, dump biomass from cultivation along the roadsides and clog up the drainage system, the drainage, the rivers, and we want to conclude by saying that we want to avoid that because there are very many of them. The other agricultural waste pollute soils, water, and air within the city of Nairobi. We want also to say that is one of the conclusions that we want to address and then share with the policymakers and the city of people, the city county officers and NEMA as our authority that can assist us here. We share how we can work on this together. So these are a number of the conclusions that I may not read all of them, but only share that the other best practices of managing organic agricultural waste include composting, so that you can use that as manure and to manufacture fertilizer, and rearing black soldier fly larvae to provide animal feeds. And these are some of the conclusions and some of the suggestions that we want to look at them. So generally, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to conclude my slide by saying thank you for inviting us and enabling us to make this presentation and to share with you, and then move on and build environment that we are into an environment that is habitable, friendly, and conducive to living. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Michael. It is a very nice presentation, and we are very much thankful to you for maintaining the time limit of 15 minutes. And any questions are there, we will take it up in the question and answer session
at the end.
Now I request the next presenter, Professor AIDA Ben HASSEN. Professor AIDA Ben HASSEN.
Hello, everybody. I will share my screen, my presentation.
Madam, kindly keep your presentation in the presentation mode so that it will be more visible. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And kindly maintain the time limits of 15 minutes.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
So thank you very much for the introduction. I am AIDA Ben HASSEN. I'm associate professor from the Research and Technology Center of Energy. I'm leading a team on waste to energy team. We are working on several technology of waste conversion into biofuels and biochar. We are working on waste material valorization as composting and anaerobic digestion. Here in my presentation, I will talk about the situation of waste management in Tunisia and opportunity for energy and material recovery from waste as an opportunity for the implementation of the circular economy approach. So for our colleagues who don't know Tunisia, we are a small country here. We are in the north part of Africa. We are in the Maghreb region. Tunisia is a small country with a surface, an area around 164,000 square kilometer, and with very few population, around 12 million people. Tunisia is near the Europe countries. Here we are almost at 1 hour of from Tunisia to Rome in Italy, and around 2 hours to Paris in France. But we are far from 12 hours to New Delhi in India. Tunisia is a very attractive touristic destination with huge, big number of tourists who are coming to Tunisia each year. We are around now 9 million of tourists are visiting Tunisia. Tunisia is attractive by its coastline on the Mediterranean Sea. Also by its another feature of Tunisia is the desert and the Sahara part in the southern part of the country, and also by its culture monuments such as the Roman amphitheater, which is the second one, which is well known in the world after that of Rome in Italy. But Tunisia has another face as a developing country. is the garbage, is the solid waste pollution, and we are really facing a serious problem with our garbage, which is in all environment, in the beach, in the roads, in agriculture lands. This situation is more enhanced after the revolution, with many social events, with the strikes and many excessive claims, and maybe to a lack of citizens' awareness. In terms of quantities of annual production, we are producing yearly in Tunisia around 2.4 million tons of MSW per year, with an annual growth around 2.5%, and an average ratio around 0.8 kilogram per capita and per day. And this solid waste are classified into some waste from livestock activities, some agricultural or agro-industrial waste, and we have huge quantities of sewage sludge coming from wastewater treatment plants. In Tunisia, since 1996, we have an arsenal of laws. We have many legal instruments which are dealing with and regulating, if I can say, the waste management sector in our country, and we have also an institutional framework which is well developed. The main actor in the waste management sector is the Ministry of Environment and Local Affairs, and under this ministry we have the National Agency of Waste Management, which has as a mission to implement the national strategy of waste management in Tunisia. So for the collection and transportation of garbage, of waste, this action is at the responsibility of local authorities or municipalities who are doing the collection, the transportation, the street sweeping by their own equipments, or by using contracting with the private sectors. So the collection is done as a door-to-door method, and the transportation, of course, is done using several types of vehicles. In Tunisia, the collection coverage is around 80% in urban cities, but it is less than 10% in rural area. For the recycling, recovery, and collection, the waste collection is a great part, if I can say, for the waste collection is done by informal sector, which are represented by scavengers, and many people are doing this activity now to get money, to get as a job, in fact. And this informal sector is completed by a formal activities, which is represented by national programs, national recycling program, which were established since the year 1990, and these national programs are concerning mainly the packaging waste. So we have a well-known program which is named Ecoleft program, which is a public-private partnership system regulating the sector of package waste recycling. So there are also other programs dealing with waste oil with batteries and accumulators. For the well-known system, which is the Ecoleft system, as I said, it is a PPP system for collection, sort, and resell of packaging waste, and it is organized as follows. So the system, we have a storage point for this Ecoleft system, and these storage points are purchasing containers or packaging waste from formal sector, and then they are selling them to other companies who are which are agreed with this system. And these recyclers are putting the products, the recycled products, even in the local market, or they're selling them on as pellets destinated to the export. So this system is represent an alternative for to the traditional linear economy, which is based on take, make, and use and dispose, by promoting recycling and waste recovery, and by keeping resources as long as possible, and also for the recovery, and for decreasing the need to use new raw materials. And this could be first step to implement the circular economy in Tunisia. But this system has a successful period or first step, but now there is a decrease in the number of the active recyclers and the number of points of this system. So it is really an opportunity to activate the system and to give him another opportunity to be a good existing method or way to implement the circular economy concept in Tunisia. As method, the common method in Tunisia for the treatment of our waste is landfilling, and this landfilling is done mainly in sanitary landfills, but we have also other open, dumped, and uncontrolled landfills. And this is our country, Tunisia. We have 24 sanitary landfills, which are throughout the country, installed throughout the country, and only a few percentage, 9% of our waste are composted. So as I said, we are landfilling our waste, but the energetic recovery is not well developed until now. And when we deal about energetic conversion, energetic recovery, there are several methods to do this energetic recovery. Even with thermochemical conversion or biochemical conversion. And now what we have in Tunisia is some plants of biochemical conversion by anaerobic digestion. So for the thermochemical one, it's still in research and development level. For the production of biogas via anaerobic digestion, we have some pilot plants in some wastewater treatment plants we have also one plant for the waste coming from the wholesale market in Tunis City, also for the agriculture residue. Some are other farm scale biogas plants in rural area, and but the main part is not valorized yet. What we are doing in our research team, we are trying to work on these innovative technologies to produce, to convert first solid waste into bioenergies and to reduce the pollution of these waste on the environment, and to produce valuable products with high value added and high economic value. So we are developing innovative technologies such as pyrolysis, gasification, aerobic digestion, and so on. Here you can see our pilot in our laboratory and the products which are obtained from our
You got 2 more minutes left.
research. Okay.
Yeah,
So
thank you.
I will finish with some conclusions and recommendation. The assessment of the situation in Tunisia raises many questions about how we can improve this situation and which option we can highlight to reduce the pollution associated to the solid waste pollution, and how we can by the same mean improve the economic and social activities, and by reducing the poverty in our country. Our recommendation is to integrate the best practice for recycling, for resource recovery, and for the other opportunity could be exploited for the creation of jobs and to face current and future challenge. Our recommendation is to give or to pay more attention to new technologies such as pyrolysis and gasification, with a flexibility in the technical conception, taking into account the local waste constraints and the specificity or composition. And thank you for your attention. Here are my contact details if we can discuss about all the topics. And thank you. Come to Tunisia. Tunisia is very attractive destination, and you are welcome anytime. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor AIDA.
I request Chair kindly call serial number 1 and 2 as per the instruction of Professor Gold. I request Chair kindly call Professor 1.
Thank you, Professor AIDA. It is
Thank you
really
very much.
nice presentation, and your
Thank you.
slides are really good. Excellent slides. You have given a lot of good introduction about your place and the various types of the waste that are generated. And really, it's nice presentation, madam.
Thank you very much.
Now,
Excuse me, sir.
we invite Professor.
Sir, hello.
Yeah.
Sir, sorry to interrupt. As per the Professor's other course says invite question. There is sign number 1 and 2 having presented yet, sir.
Okay.
Professor Gabriela and Professor Ronald L. Mursky.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. They need to present.
Yeah. So, Professor Gabriela, we invite now Professor Gabriela. And the topic is status of the adoption and practices of circular economy in Mexico. Sir, take 15 minutes time. Take 15 minutes time.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
No, madam.
Cannot hear me.
Share your slides, madam.
Okay, someone is going to share it for me. Okay.
Yeah. Make it in presentation mode. Yes, right.
Okay. Good morning, everybody. Good afternoon. Good night. Thank you very much for the invitation to Professor Savan Kosh. I would like to talk about the status of adoption and practice of circular economy in Mexico. Next, please. For that, I will briefly present info. Next, please. The previous. Yes. Okay. To give a brief context of what is Mexico, where it is, and then the methods that were used to evaluate that status of the adoption of circular economy practices, followed by the results, conclusions, and recommendations. Next. For those who don't know, next, please. where Mexico is. Here it is in green, it's in the Americas, specifically in the North American region. It is our flag. Next, please. We have a huge population and surface. 2/3 are arid and very low precipitation, and 1/3 of the country, the southeastern region, is quite humid, and the jungles and the rest of that. We have huge surface of fresh water and the 12% of world biodiversity, and nearly 126 million by 2015, and is the largest, one of the largest, 13th largest economy in the world. There you can see the Chichen Itza pyramids in the south. Next, please. But talking about circular economy, the initiatives are quite recently, but are growing quite rapidly. And they had led to the adoption of the subnational level, that we call states, kind of counties, have implemented very advanced regulations on banning the single use of plastics, for example, or forcing recycling, enforcing the recycling practices. But if we are honest, it's only in 2009 that the first initiative on circular economy was published in the Senate House. And recently, in these 2 years, it has advanced a bit further, but it's not low by now. But it must be said that the different building foundations to arrive to that initiative were started in 1988, when the waste management laws and consumption and recycling were introduced. Next, please. Okay, for this study, it was just a bibliometric analysis, data visualization using an R package, the bibliometrics package, on mainly the publications that were in both Spanish and English that were published internationally and nationally. But not only that, additionally to that, because there is a lot of international activity in Mexico regarding circular economy, a review was done on the main web pages of industries and associations active. Next, please. Here are some results. We have 2 word clouds in the publications covering for 2016, that is when they started to talk about circular economy in Mexico, to this year. And we can clearly see that the waste management is the main, the most repetitive term. The one that you see to your left is using a single keyword, and the second one is using 2 words, a diagram. So we can see that the economic model has been implemented, or is being practiced, or is being planned on the waste management sector. And this is clearly seen more or less in the tree map that is behind, the one with the squares, where the same situation is again confirmed. But we started to see here in a more clear way that there are some other sectors, for example, tourism, water, which is quite important because 2/3 of the country is arid, but as well some other industries and electronics. Next, please. And this is a simple corresponding analysis where we can see again that there are 2 main sectors, or two main areas with sectors where circular economy has been applied, and the one that is sort of linking both of them is waste management again. But you can see here other topics where circular economy has been or will be applied. Next. And this is a cluster analysis where you can see again quite clearly where the sectors are and how they relate to each other. Next, please. Okay, we can say that, of course, there is a presence of international aid to promote circular economy implementation in the country. But as well, as I have already mentioned, government and national level have issued regulations to support the previous one, please. The previous one, previous, that's it. Next. One more, please. One more. To the end, and in the recommendations, please. No. Further down. That's it. Stop there. The previous one. Yeah, that's it. Thank you. Don't move it. Leave it there. Okay. In one of the studies that we encountered and analyzed in the same way that the cluster analysis, it was some surveys that were done on the common people in the street. And what is interesting is that 1 in 10 were kindly familiar to the term, but didn't know what it is. And this is important. Next, because as I can see, next please, and I just listened about the Tunisian case. If we don't involve the people, we are not going to have a real circular economy implementation, but more of this soon. Again, there is a very inclusive, aggressive actions of international corporations to implement circular economy activities that they claim that they do it, and they show to the public that they do it in the products. Next, please. Okay, here come to the conclusions. Mexico's circular economy is in a transition phase, but it should be under a hybrid model. The one that is going to not only technically implement the actions, but that is just and is going to support the sustainable transition agenda. What I mean by that, that there is, as in many countries, an informal sector involved in the activities, working on the worst conditions, and the sector is completely taken by kind of criminal activities and gangster activities in how they do that recycle. So we need to think about a hybrid model with a job creation and the development of people that are involved in there, in kind to really adopt this circular economy. That large corporations are applying circular economy activities, it is good, but at the same time it could be dangerous because it could be seen as greenwashing activities of large corporations that are claiming that they are doing circular economies, but are still extracting much of the water that and leaving communities without water. So that is a danger that it cannot be or cannot have a very nice or beneficial significance to the rest of the people. Okay, yes, it's true. Mexico needs to embrace technological innovations, but again, analysis, and I'm not short in doing so because a lot of the people, if we really want to do this, not a practice or a fashionable or greenwashing activity, we need to involve people. Next, what will be some of the recommendations that we have? Well, to organize and set up a national strategy on circular economy, go further from that initiative and coordinate with the other states and countries that already have some very advanced circular economy regulations. It is important that large corporations, and we understand that because they are following the headquarters of politics, that sort of in this way to implement circular economy as they claim, they come closer to other small and medium enterprises in Mexico. There's need for a channel of cooperation. As well, when it is needed to support educational and awareness campaigns for the waste and residue in the different sectors, and to prepare a research and development agenda that partnerships, academia, and industry. Next. And that's all. Thank you for your presentation. Here are my details. If you need to make a comment or need to contact me, I will be happy to talk to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Gabriela. And really, it's a wonderful presentation of sharing the information regarding the implementation of circular economy in Mexico. So, and we are also thankful to you for meeting the time requirement. Thank you, madam. And now the next presentation is by Professor Ronald from USA, addressing the nuisance aspects of municipal solid waste management.
Okay, thank you. I'd like to thank the conference organizers, Professor Ghosh, and all else involved for putting together this magnificent meeting with participants from almost 50 different countries. What I'm going to be speaking about this morning is addressing the nuisance aspects of municipal solid waste management. And to understand that, what I'd like to do is give you some background as to how I came up with this concept for a presentation. I work as, among other things, editor of the Journal of Solid Waste Technology and Management and chair of the International Conference on Solid Waste Technology and Management. And as a result, I get to see hundreds of different research papers every year and have a very good idea of where research around the world is headed, what areas people are looking at, what are the emerging areas. And one area which I think we are all aware of, and which I'll be getting into in some detail in the next few minutes, is the fact that solid waste, in addition to its environmental, economic, and other well-known costs, also imposes a great deal of nuisance on the population. And it seems to me that this is an area where there hasn't been enough research, enough managerial interest applied in order to address what really is in many ways a very severe, although overlooked problem. So to begin, what I'd like to do is go back a little bit in history and talk about how solid waste has changed over the last 1,000 or so years, maybe beyond 1,000 years. If you look at the earliest stages of solid waste management, what was really of interest, and in most cases in early cities, was removal of waste from the place where people lived. You cannot have waste accumulating in a city. So essentially, there were systems put into place, sometimes based on individuals, sometimes based on actual organized collection and transport, to simply move the waste somewhere other than where people were living. Over time, as this open dumping became less and less sustainable, there was an interest in proper disposal, whether it was sanitary landfill, something not quite up to landfill standards, but we found a way to not just remove the waste, but also dispose of it. Eventually, we also became aware of the environmental impacts of waste disposal, everything from leachate contaminating groundwater to gases contaminating the air, or perhaps even posing a hazard in the area of disposal sites. So we began to address that. And over the last 30 to 40 years, there's been a strong emphasis on reuse and reduction, whether it's through recycling, recovery, or some other means. Looking at what we now have today as our main areas of concern, I think the top two that I've listed here we are well aware of. As global warming and climate change that results from global warming are becoming more and more to the forefront of our research, we realize that municipal solid waste management does indeed contribute greatly to global warming because we produce a great deal of methane whenever we are getting rid of organic carbon-based products. Another area that is getting a lot of attention, and which I'll talk about with respect to nuisance later on, is food waste. What we've been finding over the last 5 years is that communities that have already well-established programs for recycling paper, metal, plastics, and glass are now looking to recover food waste, separate them from the waste stream, and use them either in a composting or an AD type of recovery operation. I put down here nuisance reduction. This is one which I really don't see a lot of research on with the papers that come my way, but it's one that I think should be here among these current areas of advancement, because as we're going to see, nuisances are in some cases more than just a nuisance. So what do I mean by the nuisance aspects of municipal solid waste? Primarily, these occur where waste is stored and where it is then, and when it is then collected. The storage containers, whether they are the small ones that I'm showing here, large ones, whatever the case may be. So anyone who has gone through a large city, seen waste containers, finds that very often these containers overflow. There is a litter problem. Certainly there are odors, aesthetics. It is not attractive to see waste being stored as you travel through a large, otherwise beautiful city. Noise, especially associated with collection. And this noise occurs at all times of day and night, depending on the collection schedules. Animal and human intrusion, vandalism. People and animals often get into waste containers. This creates vector problems. It also creates more of the litter that we talked about at the top. And finally, traffic and pedestrian obstruction. When waste collection vehicles are emptying containers, they often have to block roadways or parts of roadways. This creates a traffic backup. There are environmental impacts of that. And again, it is a nuisance. Similarly, pedestrians are inconvenienced by waste containers on the sidewalks, and especially those that are overflowing. In addition to these basic nuisance concerns, there are also secondary concerns as well. Litter, vectors, odors, all can have health implications. For that matter, even blocking traffic, which results in additional air emissions, can result in health impacts. Certainly there is environmental damage from waste being washed into waterways, from the additional air emissions from collection vehicles that are idling during collection. And there are economic impacts as well. Areas with litter, areas with poor aesthetics, there is a decrease in business activity. There's a decrease in property value. All of these things occur simply because of what we now think of primarily as nuisances. So what I'd like to do in the 10 minutes allocated here is try to introduce the concept that we need to do more work removing these nuisance aspects of solid waste management, not only because of the primary ones that I've mentioned here, which in themselves do impact greatly on quality of life, but as we concern ourselves with environmental protection, health protection, economic development, I think we need to realize that we can make improvements in all of these areas if we simply can reduce how much nuisance there is associated with solid waste management, specifically at the storage container and collection interface, because that's where the waste management system most comes in contact with the public and therefore most creates these nuisances. What I'd like to do now is talk in some detail about two solutions that I see emerging, and two case studies, I guess is the best way to describe it, to address these nuisance aspects of municipal solid waste management. The reason I bring these up is just to create a thought process so that hopefully as we continue working in our own respective areas of research in the waste management field, waste technology field, that we consider what can we do to develop solutions to these nuisance problems. So the solutions that are currently being looked at, and again, I'm just going to give two examples in a moment, involve one, complete sealing of waste in containers. This in itself would eliminate most of the aspects, negative aspects that we've talked about. It would prevent littering, it would prevent vector intrusion, it would remove most odors, much of the aesthetic problem. Reducing the number of collection times. Very often, waste containers are emptied on a regular schedule. That's actually what is normal. They are emptied every day, every second day, once a week, whatever the case may be, whether or not they are filled. And each time a container is emptied, there are going to be those noise impacts. There are going to be the impacts on traffic obstruction. And if the container is not ready to be emptied, if it's not full, that's really unnecessary. And finally, there may be alternate ways of storing and collection of waste. So let me now go with one technology, which I think is probably the state of the art, if you will, in municipal solid waste storage and collection. This is a system run by a company that goes by the name in Europe of NORD, in the United States, Underground Refuse Systems. It's based in Italy, and what they have is a very innovative system whereby most of the waste is stored below ground. So what we see here in the upper right are relatively attractive, actually very attractive containers, very small. They do not take up much of the sidewalk, blocking pedestrians. That is because underneath these containers, underground, there is a large container which stores the bulk of the waste. What this allows is for many, many improvements and in the traditional waste containers we see in cities, and therefore much reduction of the nuisance impacts. First of all, the waste is completely sealed. There is an interior door that only opens when the outer port is open. That blocks any odors, that blocks vectors from getting into it, prevents vandalism, completely seals off the waste there. By putting the storage underground, you have a large capacity, which means you don't have to empty these and block traffic and create noise as often as you would with smaller containers. But yet the footprint on the surface is the same as you get with a traditional container. In addition, they are equipped with sensors. Rather than collection on a regular schedule, these sensors determine when the container is almost full. And that is the only time that a collection vehicle is dispatched. So again, reduction in traffic problems, reduction in noise that occurs there. The system is completely sealed. The operator during collection never leaves the vehicle. Rather, a mechanical arm engages and removes it. So it has some really good advantages. Now, it's not an inexpensive system. And for much of the world, it may be that this seems to be something which economically is not available. So let me now give you one other example that we have here. And it's a very simple one, which is actually being practiced in many countries. Separation of food waste, as I mentioned earlier. This is now an area of increasing activity throughout the world, as I mentioned a few minutes ago. I did a study in the Israeli city of Haifa, third largest city in Israel, on their food waste recovery program. And it's relatively simple. They're already collecting bottles and cans. They're already collecting paper. Now they collect food waste. Simply eliminating food waste from the regular waste stream has a great impact on reducing nuisance impacts. Why? Most vectors are attracted to the food component of waste. They're not interested in the bottles, the cans, the paper, and so forth. Similarly, when you take food out, you can recover from it gases. You can recover useful substances. It may be methane. It may also be a solid, such as a mulch-type compost product. It has environmental protection. And food waste is also the primary source of most odor problems that we have in our waste. And this is something where I think I would like to encourage many communities to consider seriously. It's relatively easy to do. The study that was done in Haifa showed that it's simple. People can comply with the right educational program, and it greatly reduces at very minimal cost the nuisance problems that we've been talking about. So whether it's a very elaborate, very state-of-the-art system like we see here, or something relatively simple, my goal here again is to encourage that we think about ways to improve quality of life, improve the environment by reducing solid waste from a nuisance to something which is simply another unseen activity, perhaps close to electrical transmission or water transmission, things of that sort. So I think the time of my 10 minutes is up now, and I thank you very much. And questions, I think we are holding to the end. Is that correct?
Thank you, Professor Ronald. And really, you have shared a very good information. And we'll take up the questions at a later stage. Now I request Professor Gameta Sagni, Evolution of Biogas Production, Potential of Coffee as Supplemented with Poultry Manure or Cow Dung, from Ethiopia. Professor Gameta Sagni, here.
I think he is not present now.
Okay. Now we'll go to the next presentation. Professor Divo Vulcani from Nigeria, Biogas Recovery from Anaerobic Digestion of Palm Oil Processing Sludge in Nigeria. Professor Divo Vulcani.
Professor David Olukani, please respond. So, sir, I request you please conduct the QA session because he is also not here.
So nobody is there, I think.
Yeah. Please conduct the QA session, sir. You and Anil sir, both, please conduct the QA session.
Mr. Dinesh is there or not?
Sorry, sir, they seems they aren't available now.
What shall we do? Shall we close the session by inviting
Sir,
the person?
no, we may proceed to QA session, sir.
Huh?
Question answer section, sir.
Yeah.
Yeah, kindly proceed to question answer section.
Yeah, I request Professor Anirudh Mukhopadhyay to take up the question and answers. Professor.
Yes, sir. Am I audible? Am I audible, sir?
Sir, you are audible.
Yes. In this session, we had 7 speakers, and out of the 7 speakers, 5 speakers, they have presented in a very nice way, and all the presentations were excellent. Excellent presentations, and the entire audience, they got, tremendous information. And personally, I am really, excited after hearing these particular, presentations. The first presentation was given by Professor Tapas Kumar Das. It was a nice presentation, and he has elaborately presented many aspects of the advanced wastewater treatment technology. Thank you, Professor Das, for your nice presentation. And you have also compared the, the UV and chlorine technology. And you have mentioned that this chlorine technology is very toxic. And this aspect, I think this aspect is very important. And the industrial wastewater treatment, you have discussed elaborately. And you have also mentioned about reclaimed water, and you have mentioned about the zero discharge industrial wastewater management. These aspects are also very important for us, and much work can be done in this particular aspect. And I think the students and the different research workers, they will be able to extend this kind of work, and they will try to implement the good things out of the work, and they will also implement the different kinds of technologies available and mentioned by you in different developing countries. And the presentation by Professor Mune from Kenya, he has mentioned the different types of waste materials, their sources, their impacts, and the best practices. He has also commented on the best practices. He has commented on the urban and the peri-urban areas of Kenya, and whatever he has suggested in the these best practices of handling, it sounds very interesting for me. He has commented about the partnership with the stakeholders, and this is very interesting aspect, because we have to collaborate with different organizations and other institutions for the better management of this kind of waste materials. And this presentation was great. This presentation was excellent. The presentation by professor from Tunisia was excellent. She presented in a very nice way, and she has commented about the energy and the material recovery. Whatever data she has presented is quite interesting, and she has commented about the recovering energy, producing green biofuels, and developing waste to energy. All these things are very important aspect of solid waste management. And the conclusion was that we have to find out a new technology so that this particular problem can be solved. The status of the adoption and the practices of the circular economy in Mexico was a very good presentation, very good presentation. Then some kind of support is required for the small and medium enterprises. Some collaboration should be there, and a national strategy should be there, so that this kind of adoption and practice can be practiced. And so far as the practice of the circular economy in Mexico is concerned, she has integrated all the allied aspects together, and the subject is a relational subject. So we have to understand the dynamics of the whole thing. And I'm really excited after hearing this particular lecture. And the next lecture by Marksky, addressing the nuisance aspects of the municipal solid waste management. The nuisance aspect is excellent. So far as the nuisance aspect he has mentioned is quite excellent presentation, and he has identified all the aspects. He has mentioned about the global warming reduction. He has commented about the food wastes. He has commented about the nuisance reduction, and also some of the solutions he has mentioned. The sealing of waste, reduction of collection, alternative storage and management collection, and lastly the underground refuse system is it sounds quite interesting for me. So I congratulate all the speakers who have presented this evening. My congratulations from my end to all the speakers for their nice presentations. So, Chairman sir, over to you.
Thank you, Professor Anirudh, for consolidating the entire presentations. And what we understand now, the collection is important, and the technology we have to develop to convert a linear economy into the circular economy. And we have to use we need to have a various waste management technologies, so that there may not be any health issues and other issues. And I thank the Professor Ghosh for giving me this opportunity. And now we will take up some questions. Like my question to Professor Tapas K.DAS. Sir, now you see order is one of the issue. When you are using a anaerobic digestion or aerobic digestion, how to control this order? Professor Tapas.
Thank you for the question. Please, could you repeat just for...
When you are using aerobic digestion or anaerobic digestion,
okay,
the order is one of the issue. How to overcome these order issues?
Oh,
how
to? Okay. Well, thank you very much, Professor. The question is to me, right?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
All right. Thank you very much for Satyanarayan and Professor Anuruddha Mukhopadhyay.
Marsky is there? Marsky is there?
Well, let me go back a little bit. My idea was to focus on primary, secondary, and tertiary wastewater treatment. I kind of mixed industrial as well as municipal. My thought was, for India, 1.3 billion people, water is very, very important. It's all over the world. So water reuse recycling is very, very important. Water is so precious. So if we choose, one of the slides have secondary, tertiary, your cost will go up. I think there is a slide you'll see. So for class A, class B, class C wastewater, it depends what you want to use for and the quality of wastewater for use recycling. So if you pay upfront, then of course you get the benefit later on. That was the reason that I kind of alluded, and LCA I used, you could use how much it will additional cost for tertiary treatment in order to get the best wastewater, which will be almost equivalent to drinking water. Of course, the Department of Health regulation won't allow you to drink that, but in the quality-wise, it is so. But in order for the biodigestions, the treatment plant I showed is about 4 miles from here, from my house. Of course, they have the digestions that make biogas. Of course, I didn't go into that municipal solid waste utilization. I focused on the wastewater. Of course, the odor will be an issue, but it's fully contained, and hydrogen sulfides or mercaptans or some other odorous compound amine. I don't know how much it is, but as far I know, I visited the plant a number of times when I was actually working on my LCA paper using chlorine and ultraviolet. They were the first treatment plant about 25 years ago, switched from chlorine to ultraviolet. So it's not an issue here as much. It could be somewhere else, as Dr. Professor Marsky mentioned about the nuisance. That is a big thing for solid waste management. If we have organic, inorganic, like sulfur and others, then you will make some totally reduced sulfur gas, mercaptan, hydrogen sulfide, and so on. But again, it is a fully contained, and there is a leak proof. All those things, the maintenance is very, very important part of it. I hope I kind of alluded or kind of touch base, or at the interface, I answered your questions.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir. Now, there are some questions to Dr. AIDA.
Okay.
By Professor Thomas from Professor Michael. So, Professor Michael, you can directly ask the questions, or shall I read the question?
Okay.
The first question was, how effective are the national recycling programs in your place?
So for the national recycling program, we have, as I present, many programs, but the most effective one is for the packaging waste recycling. It is named Ecoleft. Eco for ecology and left for, in Arabic, is the packaging. So this program was working very well in the beginning, but after it was not entertained. It was discarded, if I can say. So, but it still working until now. We have the contact points, the local points to put the packaging waste, and the most packaging waste which are collected are PET bottle, canette with metallic and mina, and we have also cartons and papers. So this is the most effective program which is working well. Then the second question is about the products. What's about the products? As I said, for the plastic bottle, they are converted into pellets, plastic pellets, which are used in local market for recycled products, or which are destinated to the international market through the export activity. Yes. The third question is about if this activity of recycling is strengthening the economy in Tunisia. It is contributing in this the strengthening of our economic activity, because there are the creation of several SCM and many entreprise, what I said, the startup, the small enterprise, and this creation is in the upstream, in the collection of the waste, and also in the recycling activities. So it is contributing in the growth of our economic activity until now.
Thank you very much, Ben Hassan, for those suggestions. I appreciate it. You have answered my questions quite well. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, madam. Thank you, Michael. And now the next question is Professor Ronald. Really, it's a very interesting thing and a very good idea of storing the waste in an underground system. But what will happen to the soil as well as the groundwater? Can you throw light on this, Professor Ronald? Professor Ronald Elmersky.
Ronald, are you here? Ron, there is a question for you.
So if he is not there, I think maybe any other question?
Maybe you can go to someone. Yeah.
Yeah. Any other question? Any other question from any other speakers? To any other speakers?
Yeah, I have a question.
Yes.
You know, it's not a question, but I would be pleased to know from Michael Quach, in Kenya, do you have a waste to energy plan for, I mean, say either the cement plant or any incineration plant? Professor Quach.
what I would like to say is that a number of those industries, I remember in the plenary today or at the inaugural meeting, I noticed that in India, you are giving prizes to many organizations, the cement plants, and you name them. We have them here, but I think the management of them or how they work and how they manage the environment is still a big challenge. But for the recycling plants, we haven't created them yet. We have a few organizations that are collecting the waste, and even within the city estates where we are, for example, the efforts of differentiating or isolating the waste, whether be food, be solid, and you name them, those efforts have not even reached there, because you may do that in the house, but when you take them out, they are all compressed together, and then they are taken to the waste, in the Dandora waste that I mentioned earlier in my presentation, and then they are all taken together when they are all mashed up. So the efforts of segregating the waste has not even worked out yet in Kenya, and we are working toward that direction, borrowing ideas from India, from the US, and from Tunisia and other places, so that we can be able to manage our waste, segregate our waste, recycle our waste, and be able to utilize them the way some of the presenters have already said. And I like the idea of Professor Musk, and I think the Israeli approach might be good. So we will study them and make recommendation, and we may make partners with us so that we can be able to be helped with our waste, the food waste, the agricultural waste, and all other types of waste, solid waste, and the plastics and the rest. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. I was supposed to tell something about India's waste management and the survection, but I could not be able to do it. Maybe next couple of days in the conference, I'll make it. You know that you can imitate one of the India's model, the survection. It is very successfully working in India for making all the cities waste management friendly. However, I'm not expanding it. I'm very happy seeing one of my friends who is working with me for last 1.5 years. That is Gabriela from Mexico. Gabriela, thank you very much. And I'm very happy that you could join here. And I'm also happy seeing Ronald Marsky, my friend from US, but I think he has some problem in microphone. So, however, he has a session chairing possibly tomorrow or day after tomorrow, then we will meet and we'll discuss. And thanks all. AIDA is a very good speaker, so I don't have anything to say. And Tunisia is doing well. They are progressing in waste management also. So with this, I think that chairs, Professor Aniruddha and Professor Sugala, Satyanarayan has done a great job, and they could manage to complete the session within time. Now it's 8:20, so our time was 8:15. So thank you very much for participation in this session, and I must thank our secretariat to have done a good job. Now my secretariat will request all of you to make your camera on so that they can take up a photograph for all of you. So please put on your camera and show your face so that they can take a good photo. All of you, please. Is there? Yeah. Oh, Marsky is there. Hello, Marsky.
Hello, Professor Ghosh. Yes, I am here.
Yeah. Oh, I could not see in my camera. So, however, So I think everything is okay, and you have a session day after tomorrow or tomorrow? On
Day after tomorrow, as chair, yes, the
Day after
microphone is working. I think I was not hearing for a moment.
Okay, all right, and I request, there is a problem for hall number 3 and 4 with respect to the link is concerned. So we have put up the new link and sent it to you. So please use your schedule number, revision number 6. And we will arrange to send once again this evening so that you get the schedule and you can use that schedule. Similarly, you can join, just click to join and you can enter into the hall. So with this, I hand over to the secretariat for the finishing touch. Please go ahead.
Tomorrow's session. We now close the session. We request all the participants to please join the next session. Timing AIA standard time. Thank you all.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye.
Bye. See you.
ফোন থেকে কখনো কখনো ফোন থেকে Stop.